Hello board game brothers and sisters, I'm Adam Singer. Welcome to another episode where I'll be letting you know about all the board games launching this week. If you're new here, we do this every week, but before we get into it, I want to let you know about all the news and discoveries that I learned about earlier this week. Today I only got one game for you, so let's get into it. Just announced on Gamefound, we have Avatar: The Journey of Aang. Here we have a cooperative deck building game. It's based on the Avatar series, so if you're a fan, make sure to subscribe down below where I'll be talking more about this game the week of its launch. As always, I'd like to give a shout out to Alex over at BoardGameCo because him and I work together to keep track of all these campaigns. If you want to take a look at some similar content, make sure to check out his channel. He has a ton of awesome videos, and I'll make sure to leave that link in the description for you down below. That's all for an intro. We have a lot of awesome games for you. I hope you all have an awesome April Fools. Let's check them out.
And the first campaign we have launches on April 2nd, and this one is called Millennium Blades Again. And this is a set of expansions that's going to be released for the existing game, which is Millennium Blades. And this one does have a few expansions out for it already, but this game plays 2 to 5 players and takes about 80 to 120 minutes to play. And if you're not familiar with this game, this is a really interesting TCG simulator style game where you're going to be getting all sorts of these cards at the start of the game, and they're all going to be organized into different packs, and players are going to be combining these together in order to create their deck. But it does give you that TCG sort of experience with players being able to use different starter packs and mix those with more advanced packs or even booster packs in order to create their overall deck of cards. You're also going to be doing a lot of trading between players throughout the game, and also getting rid of cards and adding new ones to your deck. That gives you that whole life cycle of trying to collect certain cards in order to get those into your deck. And then it also does have some really fun elements like incorporating some of these ideas into the game itself, like having an actual card that represents your deck box, which gives you a special ability while you play the game. And it also allows you to take certain cards and put them into your collection set in order to score victory points for the end of the game. They also take a really fun approach with the art design that they take on these different decks because a lot of them are riffing off of existing TCGs and popular IP. And you'll see decks in here that might be familiar to you because it'll be very similar to those card games or video games or TV series that they are riffing off. And this is all very tongue-in-cheek. It is intentional by them, and I think it's a really fun decision that they incorporate into this game. And there's one more really awesome thing that I do want to mention about the art on this one, and this is the Millennium Blades Art Initiative. And I like this for a few reasons, but basically what it is a initiative run by Level 99 Games where they're pledging to basically invest their money into commissioning artists rather than putting that money into your traditional advertising campaigns that we see on a lot of Kickstarter and Gamefound campaigns these days, especially those exploitative ones that use very advanced tactics and a lot of data gathering in order to really manipulate the backers. This is something that this company wants to stay far away from, which I definitely want to commend here. And along with this, they are actually employing real artists rather than using AI, which I do have mixed feelings about, but in general, if a game is getting other creative minds involved and giving them opportunities to make money doing what they love, I think that's generally a good thing. And Level 99 is trying to do this in a way that is supporting artists by providing them with creative freedom and paid opportunities, commissioning real-life artists to create artwork for the Millennium Blades game. Of course, there's a lot more details to this, and I'm just giving you the broad strokes, but if you are interested to learn more about this initiative, you can go ahead and check it out on their website. But really awesome work here, and I just want to thank Level 99 Games for going in this direction. But this is a game where players are not only building up their deck with those booster packs, but players are also going to be choosing a hero at the start of the game, with each of the heroes having a few special abilities that you'll be able to take advantage of as you play throughout the game. And the way that this game works is that players are going to be playing over a series of tournaments, gaining victory points based on how well they do. There's also some other ways to gain victory points, like gaining certain cards, collecting sets of cards, and then also just gaining money, because money is worth victory points at the end of the game. But what's interesting with this game is that after each round, you're always going to have the opportunity to manipulate your deck, buy new cards, get rid of cards, or trade with the other players, and that's where the TCG element really comes into play here. But this is still a tactical card combat game, and at the start of each round, players are going to be drawing 8 cards from their deck, and then you're going to be using 6 throughout the round. Players are essentially going to be taking turns playing a card at a time and then resolving the effects. but each player will also have a deck box card as well as a accessory that will grant them with some special abilities or one-time use abilities that players will be able to take advantage of to try and tip the scales in their favor. And whenever a player plays a card from their hand, they're going to be playing it into this tableau with the cards having different symbols and power levels on them as well as special abilities. And the whole goal here is to try and create certain combos across your cards so that you're getting the most victory points at the end of the round, because it's the player that does this that's going to be winning that round. But there are some cards that cause other players to flip their cards over, essentially making them useless within their tableau. And when you're trying to create certain combos, like if you play a card that gives you a certain amount of victory points for a certain icon, then you're trying to play as many cards that have that icon. You have to be really careful because other players can attack your card or play a card that will make you flip that card over, essentially making all the victory points that you just were earning with that card non-existent. And you can attack other players' cards in this game, and the way that that works is that each of these cards do have a power level in the top left corner of the card, and you might have other cards in play that could manipulate this, but essentially players are going to be comparing those two values, but then each player is going to be drawing a random card from the top of the main deck, and then adding that card's power level to the card that is in battle. Whichever player has the highest total strength at that point, taking into consideration all the different effects and different abilities, then that player is going to win that battle, which does earn them victory points, and then the other player is going to have to flip their card down, essentially nullifying any of its effects. Luckily, there are other cards that you can use to flip cards back up, and you might want to keep one of those in your hand just in case you need it for a desperate moment. But after all the players have played their 6 cards and the winner has been determined for that round, you're then going to be moving into the trading card portion of this game, and this is where all that trading card simulation really comes into play, because players will be able to use any money that they earned to purchase new cards. They can also sell some of their existing cards to get money, and also there are special cards that you'll actually have to discard cards from your hand in order to get those. It's also at this point in the game where players can combine cards matching the same type or element in order to create sets of cards, and then permanently remove those from their deck and put them into their collection area in order to score victory points. I really like this because it creates a tough decision of, do you want to commit those cards for victory points, or do you want to hang on to those so that you can use them in future battles? But the game continues like this over a series of tournaments, and the player with the most victory points at the end of it wins the game. And if you are interested to check this one out, I will have it linked in the description down below. Also launching on April 2nd, we have GACHIJO 4 Ninjas in the Castles of Treasure. And this plays 2 to 4 players. It takes about 15 to 90 minutes to play. And this is a game where players are different ninjas tasked with a mission to collect certain items. And the player that does that first is going to be triggering the end of the game. But the player that actually wins this game is the player with the most victory points. You're going to be getting different victory points for different items that you're able to collect, because you only need a minimum amount of them in order to complete your mission. But if you do get more of them, those will be adding to your victory point potential at the end of the game. And this is a game where players are going to be moving their ninjas around the board and interacting with different elements as well as the other ninja. But a really interesting, unique mechanism of this game is that you can actually modify the board itself, because underneath the board you have 2 sliding pages, a blue one and a red one, and you'll be able to use your movement actions in order to slide those a number of spaces, and that allow you to actually modify the structure of the board and create new paths that weren't there previously. On a player's turn, you'll be able to make 3 manipulations of the board, and this is really interesting because not only are you trying to set yourself up for success, but since all players are on the same board, any changes that you make are also going to affect your opponents. Ninjas can move freely within the area that they are confined in by the walls, but there are also staircases that are on different areas of the board, and you can use those to kind of teleport to another area. Of course, you're doing this to try and get your ninja in the same area as one of the items that you're trying to complete in order to complete your objective. But some of the items that you need to gain in order to complete your objective are not necessarily items that you can just go ahead and pick up. Instead, they're sort of badges that you earn when you engage in combat with an opponent and win the battle, or even summon a creature out on the board. And to engage in combat in this game, you're going to have to pick up a weapon from one of the weapon tiles. You'll be able to use this against any opponent that's in view, and assuming that they don't have some sort of token to defend against it, you're going to be gaining a shinobi token, but you're also going to be able to take a treasure treasure from them, and you're also going to be sending them back to their starting position. In order to summon a creature out on the board, you're going to have to slide the 2 sheets so that these blue and red icons overlap to create this symbol. Whenever you do that, you're going to be gaining a creature that you'll be able to put out on the board, and each creature is going to have its own set of movement points, but you'll be able to use that creature to also attack opponents, which will force the opponent to lose one of their treasures and will also gain you a summon token. And like I said, these tokens might be required in order to complete your mission. There's also an icon out on the board that players can land on that allows them to draw a tool from the tool bag, and these can allow you to do things like move through water, move across the rooftops, or even climb over walls, and they can also allow you to hide from attacks. When a player completes their mission, they have to raise their flag up to let all the other players know, but then to trigger the end of the game, they also have to get back to their starting position. This gives the other players the opportunity to try and steal different items from them or cause them to lose items, or just try to focus on getting more victory points themselves so that when the end of the game is triggered, you might stand a chance. But once the game does come to an end, each player is going to be tallying up their victory points, and the player with the most victory points wins. And if you want to check this one out, I will have it linked in the description down below. And this next one is a game that I thought was launching a couple weeks ago, so I did already cover it, but they do have a countdown, and it looks like this one's going to be launched on April 1st, so I feel much more confident this time, but this looks like a really fun game. Definitely check it out if it does sound interesting to you. But if you did miss out on that previous footage, well, you should probably subscribe down below to get notified as soon as these videos go up, but I'll go ahead and re-roll that for you now. And this is a really fun little game where players are going to be rolling dice on their turn. They're going to be adding the value of those dice together, but then that value that they add up to is going to be activating any of the cards in your tableau that match that value. The catch here is that it's also going to be activating everybody else's cards as well that match that value, but you do have a few actions at your disposal to modify the value of the die to try and change it to maybe something that benefits you more than your opponents. And of course, when they do get activated, they're going to be generating you the income that those cards provide. And you do have other actions that you can do to get more cards into your tableau or trade cards from your tableau with other cards from the deck. The whole goal of the game is to be the first player to get a certain amount of credits, so if you're able to do that, then you win the game. But this new expansion is going to be adding a bunch more content into the mix. First off, it's just going to be expanding the amount of cards available, but it's also going to be adding a few new modules that you can mix into the game, like the culture cards, which are cards that you're going to be starting the game with, but they're going to give you some special abilities, and they can only be activated once per game. So anytime that you want to take advantage of those abilities, you'll be revealing them to use that ability. There's also a patrol mechanism that's going to allow you to reserve some cards in advance, even if you can't afford them yet, to make sure that you're getting the cards that you want. But like I said, there's going to be a bunch of new cards and decks that you'll be able to add and mix into the game. But there's also going to be some cards that could have multiple options or effects as well when they get activated. And if this one does sound interesting to you, definitely check it out. I'll have it linked in the description below. Also on the second, we have Horrors on the Orient Express. And this plays 1 to 4 players. It takes about 90 to 120 minutes to play. And this one is a cooperative game where players are going to be playing as asymmetrical investigators on a train that's overrun with cultists. Your goal is to try and uncover which of the suspects are the cultists, and then also do all that before the train reaches its final destination, because if you don't, then you lose the game. But don't worry, because there are also a ton of other ways to lose the game, because you're going to lose if the train ever comes to a complete stop, if it's ever overrun by too many monsters, or if there's too many passengers that die, too many active portals, or if any player loses all of their sanity. But before I get too into it, I also do want to mention that this one is my own personal pick of the week, because I think this game looks like a ton of fun. It looks really well designed, and it is coming from a couple designers that have a lot of popular games under their belt. So if you are a fan of these designers, I think this is definitely one that you'll want to check out. And if it wasn't immediately obvious, this is a game that does take place in the Cthulhu universe, specifically in the Call of Cthulhu universe, which is a very popular RPG. The whole concept here is that there's a bunch of cultists on the train, and they're going to be opening up different portals, causing different monsters to spawn outside the train and affect the passengers by looking through the windows. But that's not all you have to worry about, because there's also a vampire on the train that's going to be causing its own problems. But on the investigators phase, players can go in any order, and players are going to be spending their stamina in order to perform 2 basic actions as well as a main action. The basic actions are all outlined on the left-hand side of the board here. They're going to allow you to move around the train, open and close the various curtains on the windows, because that's going to be affecting the behavior of the monsters, since the normal monsters are outside the windows, so they want the windows open so they can affect the passengers. But then the vampire doesn't like the light, so the vampire is going to want those windows closed. So depending on where the vampire is and where the monsters are, the players are going to have to decide whether they want to keep those curtains closed or open depending on what they think is a bigger threat. Another thing you can do is use the action of the train car that your character is currently located at. For example, if you're at the front of the train, you can use an action to speed up or slow down the train. And this can be important because you might want the train to go faster to reach its destination faster. But of course, if it gets there too fast, you might not have enough time to identify the cultists, so that might not always be the case. But you do always want to make sure the train is moving, because if its speed ever drops to 0, all the players lose the game. Of course, there's going to be a bunch of passengers on the train as well, and these are represented by dice, and the side that is currently face up represents their current state. So they can be in a bunch of different moods, but they can also be insane, and they can also be dead. Lucky for you, there is also an action that you can use to interact with these passengers in order to gain more clues as to which of your suspects are actually the cultists. And whenever you do that, there's going to be a push your luck mechanism that comes into play when you're drawing different tokens from the bag in order to try and get the clues that you want. But if you draw too many of a particular token, then you fail that action and you don't make any progress on your suspects. And like I said, there's going to be a bunch of suspects, and you're going to have an individual board for each of those suspects. And as you gain more information on them, you're going to be adding tokens to the spaces underneath them. Interacting with the passengers is the main way to do this, but each of the suspects will also have a unique goal or objective, and if you're able to help them fulfill that, then that will give you even more information. Of course, depending on the state of your various passengers and the threats that might be on the car that they're currently in, you might want to move them around as well. But things get really interesting with your one main action, because each player is going to have a whole selection of different options for this, and these can actually be swapped out and upgraded and changed throughout the game. But these different actions will have a variety of effects, and in order to take that action, you're going to be taking a cube from the bottom of your board and then placing it in the space next to that action, which blocks it as long as that cube is there. But there is one main action that all players do share, and that is the rest action. This is one of the ways that you can gain stamina, but it's also going to return all the cubes back to the bottom of your board, and it's also going to allow you a certain amount of upgrades that you'll be able to spend to modify your main actions. And like I said, upgrade them, add new ones, or swap existing ones out for different ones. At the end of each round, you're going to be moving the train forward a certain amount of spaces depending on your speed, but as you do that, you're going to be flipping over one of the tiles next to the track once the train makes it to that section. Depending on how many passengers you have in the train at that time that are currently insane, you're going to be adding a number of portal tokens onto the different actions that might appear on that board. These actions are always bad things, and they get activated at the end of each round, but the number of portal tokens on them dictates how many times they will get activated, because every time they do get activated, you're going to be removing one of those portals. This is why it's so important to keep your passengers sane, but also if you ever have to add a portal token and there's none left in the supply, then you automatically lose the game. But of course, with all these different effects and the decisions that the players are making, there's going to be different tokens that will appear and get added to the event board. There's 5 different tokens that can get added in various ways, but as soon as there are 3 of them added, that's going to trigger that event board to activate. This can cause a lot of negative effects, like spawning different monsters, causing them to attack, causing random events that can affect your passengers, or of course, trigger effects from the cultist ritual. And there are a bunch of different rituals offered in this game, giving a lot of variability from game to game, and each of those can progress with different effects as the game goes on and as the cultists get further in that ritual. You'll just be following the instructions of that card, and then hopefully you're all still alive and sane by the time that's done. But the game continues like this until either one of those lost conditions are met, or the train reaches the end of the track, and then if you also were able to identify all the suspects by that time, then you win the game. And if you do want to check this one out, I will have it linked down in the description below. Also launching on the 2nd, we have the next edition of the Roll With It system, which is the Modern series. And this is a solo game that takes just 60 to 90 minutes to play. And this is a system that was already applied in a previous campaign where they focused more on a fantasy setting. But this one is called the Modern series, which is going to be focusing on a whole bunch of different modules that are going to be taking place in more realistic and more modern environments. Each of these modules is going to be introducing some new ideas and different variants on the core system, but this is a system that I did cover in the past, so if you do want to learn more about it and understand exactly how it works, I'll just go ahead and roll that previous footage for you now. And the way that these games work is that they're all based on the core Roll With It system, but then each one's going to be coming in with different mechanisms and rules that are going to make them play a little bit different and tell a little bit different of a story. And the system uses a set of dice and cards for players to perform their actions and abilities, and it's also going to come with a sheet of the area that you're exploring. You're going to be using that to track your progress. And then finally, there's going to be a doom die that you're going to be rolling at the start of the game, but then it's also going to be dictating the actions of the enemies. And the game plays over a series of rounds where the player is going to be rolling 4 6-sided dice and then 1 4-sided luck die. You'll be able to activate 3 of those 4 6-sided die in order to move that amount, and then you're going to be discarding the 4th one. And anytime that you move through an icon located on the map, that icon is going to get activated, and it can do different things like gain you relic cards, which will gain you a one-time or permanent ability, or you might activate traps, which will move you up the terror track, and if that ever reaches the skull, then you're going to be losing the game. And you'll be discovering new icons throughout the different games, introducing new mechanisms as you play them through. But as you move around on the sheet, the path is going to be crumbling behind you, which means that you can't pass over a space that you've already occupied. You also have to use the full value of the die that you're activating, and you can't move through walls, and you also can only move in a straight direction at the start of the game, which means that some values may not be useful to you. And this is where that 4-sided luck die comes into play, because whatever value you rolled there, you can use it once to add or subtract a value from one of your dice. After you've activated all 3 of your dice, then you're going to be moving on to the enemy power phase, where the enemy's power is going to activate and have some sort of negative effect on the player. This can be manipulated by the value of that doom die, which is then going to be incremented by 1, changing the value for the next round, which then is going to cause a slight variance to the enemy's power in the following round. And if you're able to complete that map's objective before that terror track reaches the end, then you win the game. And if you're interested in this one, you can check it out and all the different modules that are going to be offered in the link to the campaign in the description below. Also on the second, we have Super Squad High, and this plays 1 to 4 players. It takes about 45 to 120 minutes to play, and this is a cooperative game where players are playing as teen superheroes trying to stop a supervillain. But of course, as a young superhero, you're going to have to balance your time between fighting crime at night and maintaining your grades and social interactions at school. And the way that this works in the game is that this is a worker placement game, and you're going to have to take actions in the morning, afternoon, and night, but you only have a couple actions that you can take during each time of the day, so you're going to have to decide where you want to invest that time. The main board has a bunch of different worker placement locations that you can interact with each of them having different icons indicating what time of day they occur, as well as icons indicating the type of actions that you're taking there. For example, you might be completing schoolwork, hanging out with classmates and learning their likes and dislikes, or gaining cards that might help you in fighting crime. Most of your daytime actions do take place in the school, and there's going to be different cards representing those locations that can be swapped out throughout the game. But this is a great place where you can interact with your classmates and learn more about their likes and dislikes, and that will come in handy when you choose to go out to social events during the night phase, because you can use that information to interact with the different classmates. And this is an area that does create opportunity for a little bit of role playing, because you'll be presented with a few questions while you interact with them at these social events, and if you have the tokens that you know associate with their different emotions, you can incorporate those with different responses in order to build your relationship with them. And this is really important because each of the classmates knows a rumor that will give you some clues as to who the supervillain is. Of course, you don't want to spend too much time building friendships because there's also crime to fight, and you're going to have to try and keep that crime down while maintaining the progress towards discovering the villain. But anytime that you choose to go fight a crime, you're going to be rolling the danger dice, which will result with different icons, and you're going to have to discard your various costume cards that match those icons. Of course, this is a cooperative game, so you can get help from your other players as well. Another thing that's cool about this is that there's other interactions in the game that you can do that will earn you like tokens, and then you can spend those to add boosts to your various cards. But once players have gathered enough clues to correctly identify the villain, this is going to move the game into a final battle where all the players are going to be working together for a final showdown. If the players are able to take down the villain, then they win the game, and if you do want to check this one out and learn more, I will have it linked in the description down below. Also launching on the second, we have Garden Geckos, and this plays 2 to 6 players. It takes about 20 to 45 minutes to play, and this one is a fun little tile placement game where players are going to be placing their own family of geckos out on different tiles as they try to collect different bugs and create different patterns in order to score victory points. Players will always start their turn with 3 tiles in their hand, and then they're going to be able to choose one to place out adjacent to an existing tile. The tiles are each broken into different terrain types with a bug located in the middle, and anytime that you're able to place a tile that matches 2 of the same terrain types together, you're going to be able to place one of your geckos across those 2 tiles. This is important for a few reasons because there's actually a bunch of different objectives that you're trying to achieve here, with the first being that you want to be the one to claim that tile because that earns you the bug on that tile, which you can use for different set collection objectives, but each bug is also worth 1 point at the end of the game, and the way that you determine who claims that tile is once that tile is completely surrounded by other tiles, then you're going to be checking who has the most geckos on that tile. If there's a tie, then the player who placed that final tile around it is going to be the one to decide who wins in that tie. But also there's a bunch of different shared objective cards that players are going to be racing for throughout the game, and these come in two different types. Either you want to connect your gecko on certain types of terrain, or you want to connect your gecko between two tiles that have specific bugs. First player to meet the objectives of any of these cards is going to be taking that card into their possession, and that's going to earn them the bugs indicated on that card, but then the card's going to be replaced with another card from the deck that matches that type. And then finally, players can earn victory points from their own secret objectives, and these could make certain bugs worth more to you than others, or reward you with getting certain combinations of bugs, or they might gain you additional points for claiming different terrain types, or creating certain patterns out in the main play area. The end of the game is triggered in one of three ways. Either a player has reached their sixth objective, or the entire bug supply has run out, or the final tile has been drawn. At that point, you're going to be seeing who has the most victory points, and then that player wins the game. And if you are interested to check this one out, I will have it linked in the description below, and of course you can click to get notified. Also launching on the 2nd, we have the REDLINE Payday expansion, and of course this is an expansion for the game REDLINE, the tactical card combat game, which plays 2 players and takes about 25 to 45 minutes to play. And if you're not familiar with this game, this is essentially a game that distills all the complexities of a traditional war game into a quick and easy card game. This is a game that's been out for a while now, and it does already have a few expansions already, but it's also a game that's really well reviewed, and a lot of people really do seem to like this one. What's really neat about this one is that the battlefield's represented by these 5 different mission cards, and players are going to be fighting over these throughout the entirety of the game, because once a player is able to gain control of all 5 of them, then they're going to be the one to win the game. Players are each going to have their own deck of cards made up of various factions, each with different abilities and strengths and weaknesses, and then players are going to be drawing from that deck of cards and then deciding which ones they want to deploy. But what's neat about this game is that for each of the cards that you deploy, you're going to be assigning a dial to them in secret, setting the dial to a certain setting, and then revealing it simultaneously. Depending on how you set the dial, that's going to allow you to bring other cards into play in various ways. This could allow you to bring in cards to focus more power on a single mission, or even attack missions that are adjacent to where you place your card, or even attack your player's hand directly. This new expansion is going to be adding a bunch of new cards that can just be mixed into the game. This means that there's a bunch of new mission cards that you'll be able to add into the game, but the big addition here is with the 2 brand new factions that are going to be introducing some brand new abilities and mechanisms that weren't in the game previously. The first faction is going to allow you to debuff enemy units and collect bounties, while the other one is going to allow you to mine valuable ore at different mission cards that you can later spend to unlock new options and strategies further in the game. I'm always keeping my eye out for fun 2-player games, and with the positive reception that this one's been getting, I'm really interested in it. It does look like a lot of fun, so if this one does look interesting to you as well, you can go ahead and check it out. I'll have it linked in the description below. And launching on April 3rd, we have Bon Appetit, and this plays 2 to 5 players and takes about 5 to 20 minutes to play. And this is a competitive game where each player is going to have their own set of menu items that they're trying to complete, and the first player that's able to do that is going to be the one to trigger the end of the game. The way that players do this is that you're always going to be drawing up to a hand of 7 cards, and then you're going to be trying to create a tableau of cards in order to meet the requirements of your menu item. On a turn, you just have one action that you can take, but you have 3 different options to choose from, and the first option allows you to modify your tableau by adding and removing cards from your hand. Whenever you add cards to your tableau, you're always going to be grouping them by their type. This could be an entree, a side, or a salad, or they could even be different utensils or drinks. And based on the cards that you add to your tableau, those cards themselves could have other requirements that you'll need to meet in order to complete your entire menu item. In addition to this, some of the cards that you put into your tableau could have some special abilities on them as well that you could use to your advantage in various ways, or they can also modify your menu item as a whole, even potentially removing certain requirements. Players can also find certain icons scattered across these various cards, and once you're able to get 3 of those into your tableau, that's actually going to be earning you a boss card that is a very powerful card that can grant you with all sorts of special effects and abilities to help yourself or hinder your opponents. But another action that you can take instead of adding or removing cards from your tableau is to just play one of your trick cards from your hand. And these are all cards that will either harm your opponents or help yourself. And these do come classified in varying rarities, which usually indicate how powerful the card is. So you always want to be keeping your eye out for those legendaries. And the last action you can do is to just simply discard cards from your hand. And this can be really nice if you just have a bunch of cards that aren't super useful for you. And of course, getting rid of those means that you'll just be able to draw more new cards when you do draw back up to your hand limit of 7, increasing your odds of getting more cards that are useful. First player to complete their menu item wins the game. And if you are interested to check this one out, I will have it linked in the description down below. And launching on the 5th, we have Renters. And this plays 1 to 10 players. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes to play. And this one is a competitive roll and write where players are renters trying to rent and upgrade their rundown apartment buildings, and every round you're going to be accumulating income from any of your tenants, and the first player to get a certain amount of income within a single round is going to be the one to win the game. This is a game that plays over a series of rounds, and the way that the rounds work is that you're first going to be revealing 3 renter cards, and these are going to have a number of renters willing to pay a certain amount for an apartment, and they might even pay more depending if that apartment does have certain amenities. There's also going to be 3 dice that are rolled each round, and players are going to be choosing 2 of these dice in order to determine the row and column of the space that they're allowed to rent within their apartment. You'll be able to rent that specific space as well as any of the spaces adjacent to it. The catch here is that you can only choose between the 2 yellow die because all players do have to use the black die. At the end of the round, players are going to be gaining income from their tenants, which they can then spend to upgrade their building for different bonuses, or even to avoid penalties in your rent pricing. The first player to reach a certain amount of income within a single round wins the game. And if you want to check this one out, I will have it linked down below. Also on the 5th, we have Cat Packs, which plays 2 to 4 players. It takes about 30 to 45 minutes to play. And I literally just found out about this one while filming the video, so I didn't get a chance to look into this one in too much detail, but this one looks like a game that's going to be incorporating both tile placement as well as card play as you're collecting different resources in the form of cards in order to meet the requirements of different cats that you'll be trying to place out to build up your own gang of cats. Each of the cats will have different requirements, but they also offer some different benefits as well. And some cats do play better with other cats than others, so deciding which cats you pair together is really important here. But if you do want to learn more about this one, definitely check it out, and I will have it linked in the description down below. And that's it for this week, but don't leave yet because we still have a super awesome giveaway to announce, and this one is for Super Trains. And this is a game that's great for the whole family because this one is designed to be played with kids. And in this game, players are going to be playing as their own individual super train, which is exactly like what it sounds, a train with superpowers. You're going to be upgrading your trains, generating different gears, and then using those gears to help the city and also fight back against the evil transport truck. The transport truck's going to be moving around the board, blocking different spaces and also causing different emergencies, and players are going to have to resolve all those emergencies in order to win the game. Something that I really like about this game is that it is a competitive game, and the player that earns the most stars at the end of the game is the winner. But when players are trying to resolve different emergencies, they can actually ask for help from the other players. And if another player contributes resources to help you resolve that emergency, then they're going to be rewarded for that by being able to draw cards from the kind train deck. And this is going to earn them different special abilities and actions that they'll be able to use to help them on their turn. And to enter this giveaway, all you got to do is leave a comment down below. And I do want to thank the publisher here because they are offering this one worldwide, so anyone can feel free to enter into this giveaway. And all you got to do is leave any comment that you want. But if you're looking for something in particular, maybe you could share with us a show that your kids or your niece or nephew or grandkids really enjoy. And for myself, I don't have any kids right now, but I do have a few nephews and they really do love the Stinky and Dirty Show. And I actually don't mind watching it with them, so it's a great option if you're looking for something fun to watch with your kids. But also my nephews are related to me, so they can be a little strange at times. And another favorite of theirs is the Mr. Bean Show, which I have no problems with. Good luck in the giveaways, but now let's go ahead and draw for last week's giveaways. And last week we had a giveaway for River Valley Glassworks as well as Acornism. Acornism we ran over on the Discord, and that'll be drawn within the next 24 hours here. And if you're watching this video early enough, you might even be able to still enter in that giveaway. And all you got to do is check out the Discord in the description below and click the little emoji underneath that giveaway, and that's going to get drawn really soon. So that one's going to be taken care of on its own. So all we got to do is draw a winner for River Valley Glassworks, and the draw winner here is a special application here. All these extra names are bonus entries for my supporters over on Ko-fi, which is an excellent way to support my work here if you do find it useful, and I really do appreciate it. But let's go ahead and draw those comments. and draw the winner for River Valley Glassworks. And the winner is Big Die, and this is a winner from the YouTube comments. He actually left a comment referring to another section of the video, but he did leave the hashtag glass, which meets the requirements of this giveaway, so congratulations on the win. Just email me at adam@shelfclutter.com and we'll get that pledge all sorted out for you. But that's everything I have for you this week, and if you do celebrate Easter, I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and if you do get a long weekend, I hope you enjoy that as well. It's been really nice for me because I do have today off, which gave me a lot more time to do this video rather than rushing it at the end of the day after work like I usually do. And rushing it's probably the wrong term because filming this usually takes me about 5 hours. That's it for this week, and I do just want to thank you for tuning in and supporting the video by giving it a view. And if you do like the content, feel free to subscribe down below. And until next time, keep that shelf cluttered and the table full.
Hello, board game brothers and sisters. This is Adam Singer. Do I talk too fast? I feel like I talk so fast all the time. Okay. Okay.